I didn't think a single memory could make my stomach turn the way it does now. For the longest time, when he would pull me close and wrap my legs around his waist, I felt safe. Chosen. Like I was the only woman in his world. That's the part that hurts the most, not what he did, but how special he made it feel. How he convinced me that what we had was rare. I replay those moments sometimes, trying to figure out where the lie began. Was it always there? Or did it grow quietly while I was busy loving him? We met in the most ordinary way. A mutual friend's birthday dinner. I almost didn't go. He was sitting across from me, quiet at first, studying everyone before he spoke. When he finally talked, it wasn't loud or attention-seeking. It was calm. Intentional. He asked me questions no one else did. Not surface-level things. He wanted to know what made me anxious, what I dreamed about, what kind of life I imagined at 30. I remember thinking, this man sees me. The early days were intense in the best way. He texted good morning every single day. Called me on his lunch breaks. Showed up when I casually mentioned I was craving coffee from a place 20 minutes away. It felt effortless. I never had to guess how he felt. He told me constantly. He'd say I was different. That I made him feel grounded. That he'd never opened up to anyone like this before. And I believed him because I could feel it, or at least I thought I could. When we were together, he had this way of holding me that made everything else fade. He was affectionate, but not just physically. He'd rest his forehead against mine and just breathe with me. He'd memorize the smallest details about my day. The way I take my tea. The scar on my knee from childhood. He made intimacy feel emotional, not just physical. Like we were building something sacred. Something protected. Looking back, I realize how quickly I built my future around him. I started including him in plans I hadn't even said out loud yet. I introduced him to my closest friends. My sister adored him. My mother said he seemed steady. And he was. Or at least he played the part perfectly. The first shift was so subtle I almost missed it. He started turning his phone face down when we were together. Not dramatically. Casually. Like it meant nothing. If I asked who texted, he'd shrug. Just work. I told myself I was being paranoid. Everyone deserves privacy. I didn't want to be that insecure girlfriend. Then his schedule got unpredictable. Late meetings. Last-minute cancellations. He'd apologize, kiss my forehead, promise to make it up to me. And he usually did, with flowers, with dinner, with nights that felt so connected I'd feel guilty for ever doubting him. That's what confused me. How could someone who held me like that be capable of anything dishonest? There were moments, though. Small cracks in the surface. Once, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up on the bedside table. I wasn't trying to look. I swear I wasn't. But the name wasn't saved. Just a number. And the preview said, "Last night was fun." My chest tightened. When I asked him about it later, he didn't get angry. He laughed. Said it was a coworker joking about a team outing. He looked so relaxed, so unbothered, that I felt stupid for even bringing it up. That was the beginning of me questioning myself instead of him. That I started editing my reactions. Swallowing my concerns before they could become arguments. I told myself relationships require trust. That insecurity can ruin good things. And I didn't want to ruin this. Not when he still kissed me like I mattered. Not when he still whispered that he couldn't imagine losing me, but my body knew before my mind did. I'd feel it in the pit of my stomach when he took too long to reply. When he'd step outside to answer calls. When his compliments started sounding slightly rehearsed instead of spontaneous. It wasn't dramatic. It was gradual. A slow dimming of something that used to burn bright. One night, we were lying in bed, and he held me the way he always did, firm, possessive, warm. I wrapped myself around him automatically. It was muscle memory at that point. And for a split second, I felt disconnected. Like I was performing a role instead of living it. I remember staring at the ceiling and wondering why I suddenly felt alone while being held. That I didn't accuse him. I didn't search his phone. I didn't create a scene. I just started watching. Listening more carefully. Noticing the pauses before he answered simple questions. Noticing how quickly he'd change topics when I asked about certain nights that I wanted to be wrong. I needed to be wrong, because if I wasn't, then every time he pulled me close and made me feel irreplaceable, it meant he knew exactly what he was risking. And that thought scared me more than the suspicion itself. The night everything unraveled wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming at first. No shattered glass. Just a quiet shift in the air that felt heavier than usual. He had canceled our dinner plans an hour before we were supposed to meet. Said he wasn't feeling well. His voice sounded tired, but not sick. Distant, but controlled. I told him to rest. I even offered to bring soup. He declined too quickly. That I don't know what pushed me to drive over anyway. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was exhaustion from doubting myself. I told myself I just wanted to check on him. That I was being caring, not suspicious. But my hands were shaking on the steering wheel the entire way. His car was in the driveway. The lights were on. Music drifted faintly through the living room window, not the kind he played when he was alone. My heart started pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I stood at the door longer than I should have, debating whether to knock or use the spare key he once gave me for emergencies. I used the key. The laughter stopped before I even saw anything. That it was the kind of silence that feels guilty. Heavy. Immediate. That I stepped further inside, and that's when I saw her shoes near the couch. Not mine. Not a friend's I recognized. Just there. Casual. Comfortable. Like she belonged. My chest tightened, but I kept walking. I don't know why. Maybe I needed the confirmation to hurt. When I reached the hallway, I heard a whisper. A low laugh. His voice, softer than usual, intimate. The same tone he used when he'd pull me close and murmur things only meant for me. My stomach dropped. Every memory of him holding me flashed through my mind. The way he'd guide my body closer to his, like I was the only place he wanted to be. And suddenly I realized something unbearable. I wasn't the only one who had felt that I didn't need to see everything. The image burned into my mind fast enough. The closeness. The familiarity. The way his hands moved like this wasn't new to him. It wasn't a mistake. It was practiced. That he saw me before she did. For a second, his face didn't even register fear. Just shock at being interrupted. Like I'd walked in on a meeting he forgot to cancel. Then panic flickered across his expression. He said my name like it was fragile. Like I might break if he spoke too loudly. That I couldn't speak at first. My body felt numb, but my mind was racing. Every late reply. Every turned over phone. Every time he told me I was overthinking. It all clicked into place so violently I almost felt dizzy. She grabbed her things quickly. Avoided eye contact. I don't even remember her face clearly. Just the outline of someone who had been close enough to him to blur the boundaries I thought were sacred. When the door shut behind her, it was just us. That he started talking immediately. Too fast. Too rehearsed. Said it wasn't what it looked like. Said I shouldn't jump to conclusions. I almost laughed at that. What conclusion was left to jump to? Are you serious? I finally asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was steady. Cold. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. Said it was a mistake. That it didn't mean anything. That he was confused lately. Stressed. That I'd been distant too. There it was, the shift. From apology to justification that I asked him one question: did you think about me? He hesitated. That pause told me everything. That he stepped closer, tried to touch my arm, but I pulled away. The same hands that once made me feel protected now felt unfamiliar. Contaminated. I kept picturing him holding her the way he held me. Whispering the same reassurances. Making her feel chosen. That's what shattered me, not just that he cheated, but that our intimacy wasn't unique. It was a script he knew by heart. That he kept saying it was just physical. That he loved me. That I was the one he wanted. As if love and betrayal could coexist without consequence. As if saying I mattered erased what I had just seen. That I realized in that moment that he wasn't sorry because he hurt me. He was sorry because he got caught. The room felt smaller by the second. I could barely breathe. My chest ached in a way I didn't know was possible. I thought I'd scream or cry or collapse. But instead, I felt something colder settle in. Clarity. This wasn't a one-time accident. You don't move like that with someone unless you've crossed lines before. You don't look that comfortable unless comfort has been built. That I asked him how long. Another pause. That's when I understood the betrayal was deeper than a single night. It wasn't just about her. It was about every moment he looked me in the eyes and promised loyalty while knowing he was dividing himself between two realities. That I didn't argue after that. There was nothing left to debate. The evidence wasn't just what I saw, it was in his hesitation, his excuses, the way he tried to minimize something that had just cracked my entire world open. As I walked toward the door, he called my name again. Softer this time. Desperate. Like he was afraid of losing control of the situation more than losing me, and for the first time since I met him, I didn't feel small. That I felt awake. The first morning after I found out felt unreal. I woke up expecting a text from him like always. A simple, good morning, with a heart. My phone was silent. For a split second, I almost convinced myself it had been a nightmare. Then the memory hit all at once, sharp and humiliating. I turned my phone face down this time. By noon, he started calling. That I didn't answer the first 3 times. Then the messages came. Long paragraphs. He said he couldn't sleep. That he made the biggest mistake of his life. That he loved me and didn't know why he sabotaged something good. The words looked sincere. If this had happened a week earlier, I would have melted reading them. Now, I read them with a strange detachment. Still, it hurt that he sent voice notes next. His voice sounded broken. Slower. He said he felt empty without me. That the other girl meant nothing. That it was stupid and impulsive. He kept repeating that word, nothing. As if reducing her to nothing would somehow restore my value. That I wanted to hate him cleanly. Completely. But it wasn't that simple. I missed him. Not the version I saw that night, but the version who memorized my coffee order and wrapped his arms around me like I was home. I missed feeling chosen. That's the part people don't talk about. Betrayal doesn't immediately erase love. It tangles it. Days passed like that. Him reaching out. Me resisting. Then responding. Then ignoring him again. It became a cycle before I even realized I was in one. That he started showing up outside my apartment. Not aggressively. Just waiting in his car. Sending a text that said, "I'm here if you want to talk." When I finally agreed to see him, he looked different. Tired. unshaven. As if visible regret would make everything more believable that he didn't defend himself this time. He apologized. Said he was insecure. Said he needed validation and made a selfish decision. He admitted it had been going on for a few weeks. Hearing a timeline made my stomach twist. A few weeks meant overlapping memories. Overlapping intimacy. Dates that I thought were ours alone that I asked if she knew about me that he nodded slowly, that hurt more than I expected. It meant I wasn't a secret. I was the obstacle that he reached for my hands and I let him. That scared me. Even after everything, my body still reacted to him like he was safe. Trauma bonding is real. The same person who wounds you becomes the one you crave comfort from. He promised transparency. Offered passwords. Said he'd cut her off completely. Swore he'd go to therapy if that's what it took. He talked about our future like it was still intact. Vacations we planned. Moving in together. He painted a picture so vivid that for a moment, I saw it again, then something shifted inside me that I started asking questions I had avoided before. Not just about her, but about him. Had he cheated in past relationships? He hesitated before admitting yes, once. But it was different, he added quickly. They always say that I realized this wasn't an isolated lapse. It was a pattern. When things felt too stable, too real, he looked for escape. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to sit with commitment without testing it. Friends began telling me things too. Small observations they hadn't shared before because they didn't want to interfere. How he flirted a little too comfortably. How he thrived on attention. How he liked being desired by multiple women, even if he claimed loyalty. That I felt embarrassed. Not because he cheated, but because I ignored the signs. I defended him every time someone hinted at concern. I confused intensity for depth. I mistook possessiveness for passion. The hardest part was facing my own insecurity. I compared myself to her even though I didn't want to. Was she prettier? More exciting? Less emotional? He insisted it had nothing to do with me. That I was enough. But if I was enough, why risk losing me? That question kept echoing. One evening, he said something that finally cut through the fog. I never thought you'd actually leave. He didn't say it cruelly. He said it honestly, and that honesty revealed everything. That he didn't cheat because I lacked something. He cheated because he thought I would tolerate it. Because I had always been forgiving. Because I loved loudly and believed in working through things. He calculated my capacity for understanding and assumed it was limitless. That realization hurt more than the image of him with her. That I wasn't fighting another woman. I was fighting his comfort with disrespect. When he sensed me pulling away again, the promises intensified. He talked about marriage. About starting over. About how this pain could make us stronger. He framed it as a test we could survive. But I started seeing it differently. It wasn't a test for us. It was a test for me. How much was I willing to sacrifice to keep someone who already showed me what he was capable of? I began imagining a future where I stayed. Where every late text would trigger suspicion. Where every unfamiliar name would reopen the wound. That wasn't love. That was anxiety. That he kept asking for another chance. That I kept asking myself a different question. If I forgive this, what am I teaching him about my boundaries? For the first time, the answer scared me more than being alone. The last time I saw him, there was no anger left in me. Not the explosive kind, anyway. What remained was something quieter. Clearer. He asked to meet one final time, said he needed closure. I almost laughed at that. Closure is a luxury for the person who didn't get blindsided. But I agreed, not for him, for me, that he looked hopeful when he saw me. That was the first thing I noticed. Not regret. Not shame. Hope. Like he still believed this was a temporary setback we would eventually laugh about. He started talking about everything he'd been doing to fix himself. Therapy appointments. Blocking numbers. Journaling. He listed improvements like achievements unlocked that I let him finish. When he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away this time. I simply didn't reach back. The difference was subtle but powerful. He felt it. I'm not here to argue, I told him calmly. And I'm not here to blame you either. I just need you to understand something. He nodded quickly, eager. Desperate to agree with whatever would keep me. I loved you in a way that made excuses for you, I continued. And that's my responsibility. But I won't do it again. His expression shifted. Confusion first. Then fear that he tried to interrupt, but I kept speaking. For once, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. You didn't just cheat, I said. You gambled with my trust because you thought I'd stay anyway. That's what I can't unsee. He started apologizing again, but it sounded different now. Less convincing. Like even he knew the words were losing power. He said he took me for granted. That he was scared of how much he loved me. That he panicked when things felt serious. I listened without absorbing it. Love isn't proven by how much you fear losing someone. It's proven by what you protect when temptation shows up. That he asked me if I was really willing to throw everything away over one mistake. The question almost pulled me back in. Almost. But I realized something important in that moment. He kept calling it one mistake because that made it smaller. Easier to forgive. But it wasn't one mistake. It was a series of choices. Repeated decisions to lie. To hide. To divide his attention and still come home to me like nothing happened. I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. I'm refusing to carry something that was already broken. That's when frustration crept into his voice. He accused me of being dramatic. Said relationships require forgiveness. Said nobody is perfect. I agreed. Nobody is perfect. But not everyone betrays you and expects applause for admitting it. For a brief second, I saw the version of him I used to defend. The charm. The persuasion. The subtle shift toward making me question myself. It didn't work anymore. I recognized the pattern too clearly now that he asked if there was anything he could do to change my mind, and that was the moment I knew I had already moved on internally. Because I didn't want him to try anymore. I didn't want to monitor him. Didn't want access to his passwords. Didn't want reassurance. I wanted peace. I hope you become better, I told him honestly. Just not with me. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument we'd had. He wasn't used to losing control of a situation. Not with me. I was the forgiving one. The patient one. The one who stayed and worked things out. Walking away quietly felt more powerful than any revenge I could have imagined. When I stood up to leave, he didn't chase me. I think he finally understood. The next few weeks weren't easy. Strength in the moment doesn't erase pain afterward. I still missed him sometimes. Still caught myself wanting to send him updates about my day. Healing isn't dramatic. It's repetitive. Choosing not to text. Choosing not to check his social media. Choosing yourself over nostalgia. That I packed away the hoodie he left at my place. Deleted photos slowly, not in one emotional purge but intentionally. I let myself grieve what I thought we had. That version of him existed in my memories, and it was okay to mourn it. But I stopped confusing memories with reality. The biggest shift wasn't external. It was internal. I stopped asking why I wasn't enough. I started asking why I tolerated being treated like I was replaceable. That question changed everything. That I realized intimacy isn't rare. Words aren't rare. Promises aren't rare. Integrity is. That he taught me something without meaning to. Love without respect will always feel unstable. Passion without loyalty is just performance. And someone who truly values you won't risk losing you for temporary validation. That I don't hate him. I don't even wish him harm. But I no longer romanticize what we had. The way he used to hold me doesn't feel sacred anymore. It feels ordinary. Recyclable, and maybe that's the real closure. Sometimes I wonder if he ever truly understood what he lost. Not just me, but the version of me that loved him without hesitation. That trusted him without proof. That believed in forever without fear. But that's not my question to answer anymore. The only thing that matters now is this. I walked away before betrayal became my normal, and that's a love story too, just not the one I thought I was living.